I think it's an important debate. Our founding fathers discussed this extensively in the Constitutional Convention and in the Federalist Papers, from Hamilton to Jefferson, the whole spectrum. They all decided that the power to go to war was too important to place in the hands of one person. So they said the initiation or the declaration of war would be with Congress.
This is absolutely devastating for Donald Trump. And I mean that in the most serious way possible, because what just got exposed overnight is potentially one of the biggest corruption schemes of his entire presidency. Bloomberg and The Atlantic just revealed a new charter for Trump's so-called Board of Peace for Gaza, and the terms are insane. Countries have to pay $1 billion to join this board. $1 billion. But that's not even worst part. The charter shows Trump himself will personally control which countries get to join and which don't. Trump will have sole authority over the billion-dollar payments countries submit, and the money doesn't go to some international fund or humanitarian effort. It goes directly under Trump's control as chairman of this board. This is the president creating what looks like a personal slush fund disguised as a peace initiative, charging countries $1 billion for membership, controlling who gets in, controlling where the money goes, and doing it all while bypassing Congress completely. This is corruption at a scale we haven't seen before. And Republicans in Congress are starting to freak out because they see what this really is. Trump building his own rival to the United Nations, taking billion-dollar payments from foreign governments, and using American military power to pressure countries into joining without any congressional approval or oversight. But real quick, before we get into this, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built John Brown's show, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what actually happened. The draft charter was obtained by both Bloomberg and The Atlantic, showing the structure of this Board of Peace that Trump announced earlier this week. Trump will serve as the executive board's inaugural chairman. He has sole approval authority over which member states can join. The board becomes official after 3 member states agree to the charter. And here's where it gets worse. Each member state serves a term of no more than 3 years, subject to renewal by the chairman, meaning Trump. Trump decides if countries get to stay on the board or get kicked off. But countries that contribute more than $1 billion in cash within the first year get special treatment. They don't have the 3-year term limit. They get permanent membership as long as they pay the $1 billion. Share this video with everyone you know, because what the $1 billion membership fee actually funds remains completely unclear. The charter doesn't say where the money goes, just that funding for board expenses will come through voluntary contributions from member states. But Bloomberg is reporting something even more alarming. The money appears to be under the sole control of the chairman, Donald Trump. Not some international organization, not a transparent fund with oversight. Trump himself controlling potentially billions of dollars from foreign governments. Think about what that means. Foreign countries paying Trump directly to join his board. Trump deciding who gets membership and who doesn't based on whether they pay up. Trump controlling where those billions go without any accountability or transparency. This isn't a peace initiative. This is a protection racket. Pay Trump $1 billion and you get a seat at his table. Don't pay and you're excluded. And Trump gets to control the money that comes in. Now let me bring the receipts on what really makes this scheme so outrageous and why even some Republicans are starting to push back. The charter structure gives Trump unprecedented personal power over foreign policy decisions. He approves membership, he renews membership, he controls the funds, all without congressional involvement, all without State Department oversight, all without any of the normal checks and balances that exist for international agreements and foreign aid. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown's show, because the countries Trump invited to join show this is about way more than just Gaza peace. Trump invited presidents of Turkey, Argentina, Egypt, and others. He announced that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Tony Blair, and billionaire investors would be on the board. Think about that composition. Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner on the board, billionaire investors on the board. This isn't a diplomatic peace initiative. This is Trump mixing government power with his family's business interests and his billionaire friends. And here's where the international pushback reveals how unprecedented this is. Even Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the terms of the charter. Netanyahu, Trump's closest ally in the region, the person who supposedly benefits most from Gaza oversight. Even he is saying no to these terms. Several nations are strongly opposing the draft charter, according to Bloomberg. They're collectively working to push back against the proposals. And here's what they're concerned about: that Trump is trying to build a rival to the United Nations that's more than just about Gaza. That this is something Trump would totally control outside existing international structures. Despite Trump advertising this as a board of peace, it doesn't have key support from regional actors who would actually need to participate for any Gaza peace plan to work. The board was supposedly designed to oversee and implement Trump's 20-point peace plan, but there is no real ceasefire in Gaza right now. People continue to die. Israeli airstrikes continue. The ceasefire that supposedly exists is tenuous at best. So what is this board actually for, if not genuine peace efforts? And here's where the constitutional concerns come in from Republicans in Congress. Senator Rand Paul spoke out today about Trump's pattern of using military force internationally without congressional approval. Paul pointed out that the Founding Fathers discussed extensively in the Constitutional Convention and Federalist Papers that the power to go to war was too important to place in hands of one person. So they gave the declaration of war power to Congress, not the president alone. Think about what that means. Paul is saying this matters not just for Venezuela, where Trump has already deployed military force, but for Greenland, for Cuba, for Colombia, for Iran. Paul listed at least 5 other countries Trump is currently threatening with military action, and all of these threats violate the Constitution, according to Paul, because declaring war or initiating military action is Congress's decision, not the president's alone. And Paul explained that when America has really been attacked, Congress has been nearly unanimous in authorizing military response. After Pearl Harbor, Congress was nearly unanimous. After 9/11, Congress was nearly unanimous. That's how the system is supposed to work. Congress debates, Congress votes, Congress authorizes military action when there's broad agreement it's necessary. But Trump is bypassing that entire process, threatening countries, deploying military force, all on his own authority. And here's what makes the Board of Peace scheme fit into this larger pattern. Trump is using the threat of American military power to pressure countries into joining his board and paying him $1 billion. It's extortion backed by the United States military. Join my board and pay up or face potential military action or economic sanctions or exclusion from American-led initiatives. That's the implicit threat behind this entire scheme. Now let's talk about what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said this morning that completely contradicts what Rand Paul was explaining about congressional authority. Bessent was asked whether Trump's threats to annex Greenland are serious or just negotiating tactics, and Bessent's response was revealing. He said Trump strongly believes we cannot outsource our security, that the fight for the Arctic is real. That better now, through peace, through strength, to make Greenland part of the United States so there won't be conflict. Share this with everyone because Bessent's framing completely disregards Congress's constitutional role. He's justifying potential military action to annex Greenland based on Trump's belief about American security needs. Not based on congressional authorization, not based on international law, just based on Trump deciding unilaterally that America should take Greenland to prevent future conflicts with Russia. That's not how constitutional government works. That's how authoritarian regimes work. And here's where the European response shows how seriously America's traditional allies are taking these threats. Europeans are now working on what they're calling a trade bazooka, measures that would prevent or limit U.S. investment in Europe, potentially sanctions against U.S. officials or companies. There is very serious anti-U.S. sentiment growing in European nations. France, United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway, Finland, countries that have been America's closest allies for decades are now considering economic warfare against the United States because of Trump's threats and actions. Think about what that means. Trump's corruption scheme and military threats are destroying America's international relationships. Our allies don't trust us anymore. They're preparing defensive economic measures against us. They're viewing the United States under Trump as a threat rather than a partner. All because Trump is using American power to enrich himself and his allies while bypassing every normal constraint on presidential authority. Now let me break down why this Board of Peace scheme is so much worse than typical corruption, because it combines multiple abuses of power simultaneously. First is the billion-dollar payment requirement that appears to go directly under Trump's control. That's foreign governments paying Trump personally disguised as membership fees for a peace board. Second is Trump's sole authority to approve membership and renewals. That's Trump deciding which countries get access based on whether they pay him and whether they support his agenda. Third is the complete lack of congressional oversight or approval. Trump created this board unilaterally, set the terms unilaterally, will control the money unilaterally. Fourth is the mixing of Trump family business interests with government power. Jared Kushner on the board, billionaire investors on the board, Trump's personal financial network benefiting from government initiative. Fifth is the implicit threat of military force backing the scheme. Countries know Trump is willing to use American military without congressional approval. Venezuela proves that. The Greenland threats prove that. So, the Board of Peace membership isn't just about wanting to participate in Gaza oversight. It's about avoiding becoming Trump's next military target or economic sanctions victim. That makes the billion-dollar payments effectively extortion. Pay Trump or face consequences from American power. And here's what the draft charter language reveals about how Trump plans to maintain control. Member states serve 3-year terms subject to renewal by the chairman, Trump. Meaning even after countries pay $1 billion, Trump can kick them off the board after 3 years unless they pay again or do whatever Trump demands for renewal. But countries that pay more than $1 billion get permanent membership. So the message is clear. Pay Trump even more money and you get permanent protection and access. Don't pay enough and you're subject to Trump's whims about renewal. What makes this constitutionally problematic beyond just corruption is that it appears to be Trump creating his own foreign policy apparatus outside the State Department and outside congressional oversight. The Constitution gives Congress power over foreign commerce, power to declare war, power to ratify treaties. But Trump is bypassing all of that by creating this board structure that looks like private organization, but operates using presidential authority and American military backing. And here's where the international reaction tells you how unusual and concerning this is. Even Benjamin Netanyahu, who has supported every Trump initiative related to Israel and Gaza, is rejecting these charter terms. That tells you the terms are so outrageous that even Trump's closest international ally can't accept them. Other countries invited to join are refusing to confirm participation. They're collectively organizing to push back against the proposals because they recognize this is Trump trying to build something he personally controls that looks like international organization, but really serves Trump's interests. Think about what that means. Trump is failing to get support even from countries that would normally want to participate in Gaza peace efforts, because the structure is so obviously designed to benefit Trump personally rather than actually advance peace. Because the billion-dollar payments with unclear destination raise immediate corruption concerns. Because giving one person sole control over membership and money contradicts how legitimate international organizations operate. Now let's talk about what Rand Paul's constitutional argument reveals about growing Republican concern with Trump's military actions. Paul voted to advance a resolution limiting Trump's military authority. 4 other Republicans joined him: Josh Hawley, Todd Young, 2 others. But then after Trump threatened them, saying they should never be elected to office again, Hawley and Young flipped and voted against the resolution. So it failed. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown's show because Paul explained why this debate matters beyond just Venezuela. It's the predicate for Greenland, for Cuba, for Colombia, for Iran. Paul listed at least 5 countries Trump is threatening right now, all without congressional authorization, all based solely on Trump's decision that American interests require military action or annexation. Paul is saying this violates the Founding Fathers' clear intent that war powers reside with Congress, not the president alone. And here's what the Founding Fathers' reasoning was, according to Paul. They discussed extensively that power to go to war was too important to place in hands of one person. From Hamilton to Jefferson across the political spectrum, they agreed. The initiation or declaration of war would be with Congress, because when America has actually been attacked, Congress has united quickly. Pearl Harbor, 9/11, nearly unanimous authorization. But that unity happens through congressional process, not through president deciding alone. Share this with everyone because Paul's argument exposes why Trump's Board of Peace scheme is connected to his illegal military actions. The board is Trump's way of creating appearance of international support and process for his unilateral decisions. Countries that join the board and pay Trump $1 billion are implicitly endorsing Trump's approach to foreign policy, giving him cover to claim international backing for actions he's taking without congressional approval. That's why membership is so expensive. Trump is selling legitimacy, selling the appearance that his unilateral actions have multinational support. And here's where Scott Bessent's morning show appearance revealed the administration's contempt for constitutional limits. When asked whether Greenland annexation is serious or negotiating tactic, Bessent didn't acknowledge any role for Congress, didn't mention international law, didn't discuss diplomacy or treaties. Just said Trump believes we can't outsource our security, so better to make Greenland part of United States now through peace, through strength. That's Treasury Secretary advocating for potentially military annexation of another country based solely on president's belief about security needs. Think about what that means. The administration believes Trump has authority to annex foreign territory because he decides it's good for American security. No congressional approval needed. No treaty process needed, just Trump deciding and the military executing. That's what peace through strength means in their framework. Trump threatens. Countries either comply or face military action. And somehow this is supposed to prevent conflict rather than cause it. Bottom line is this. Bloomberg and The Atlantic revealed Trump's Board of Peace charter requiring countries to pay $1 billion to join the board that's supposed to oversee Gaza. Charter shows Trump has sole authority to approve which countries can join and has personal control over the money they pay. The billion-dollar payments appear to go directly under Trump's control as chairman, with the destination of funds completely unclear because the charter doesn't specify where the money goes. Bloomberg reports Trump himself would control potentially billions of dollars from foreign governments. Even Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the charter terms. Multiple nations are strongly opposing it and collectively pushing back because they're concerned Trump is trying to build a rival to the United Nations, something he would totally control outside existing international structures. Despite Trump advertising this as a board of peace, it lacks key support from regional actors who would actually be needed for any Gaza peace plan to work. There is no real ceasefire in Gaza right now, with people continuing to die and Israeli airstrikes continuing. The board includes Jared Kushner and billionaire investors, mixing Trump family business interests with government power. Senator Rand Paul warned that Trump is threatening at least 5 countries with military action without congressional approval: Venezuela, Greenland, Cuba, Colombia, Iran. The Constitution gives the power to declare war to Congress, not the president alone. The founding fathers from Hamilton to Jefferson agreed this power was too important to place in hands of one person. When America was really attacked like Pearl Harbor and 9/11, Congress was nearly unanimous in authorizing response through the proper constitutional process. But Trump is bypassing that completely. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent appeared on morning shows advocating for annexing Greenland based solely on Trump's belief about security needs, with no mention of congressional authority or international law. Just peace through strength, meaning threats backed by military force. Europeans are now preparing what they're calling a trade bazooka, with economic measures against the United States. Anti-US sentiment is growing in France, United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. America's closest allies are viewing the United States as a threat rather than a partner because of Trump's actions. The Board of Peace scheme combines multiple abuses of power: billion-dollar payments going to Trump, sole approval authority over membership and renewals, zero congressional oversight, family business interests mixing with government power, implicit military threats backing what amounts to extortion. Pay Trump or face consequences from American power. The charter language shows member states serve 3-year terms subject to Trump's renewal unless they pay over $1 billion for permanent membership. The message is clear. Pay Trump more money and get permanent protection and access. Don't pay enough and you're subject to Trump's whims about whether you stay on the board. Trump is creating his own foreign policy apparatus outside the State Department and congressional oversight, bypassing the Constitution's provisions giving Congress power over foreign commerce, war declarations, and treaty ratification. Even Trump's closest ally, Netanyahu, is rejecting these terms, which shows how outrageous they are. Other countries are refusing to confirm participation and organizing to push back. They recognize Trump is trying to build something he personally controls that looks like an international organization, but really serves Trump's personal interests. Trump is failing to get support even from countries that would normally want to participate in Gaza peace efforts because the structure is so obviously designed to benefit Trump personally rather than actually advance peace. The billion-dollar payments with unclear destination raise immediate corruption concerns. Giving one person sole control over membership and money contradicts how legitimate international organizations operate. Republican senators, including Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, Todd Young, and others, initially voted to advance a resolution limiting Trump's military authority. Then Trump threatened them, saying they should never be elected to office again. Hawley and Young flipped their votes and the resolution failed. Paul explained this debate matters beyond just Venezuela because it sets the predicate for all the other countries Trump is threatening. At least 5 countries facing threats without any congressional authorization, all based solely on Trump's decision that American interests require military action or annexation. Paul is saying this violates the Founding Fathers' clear intent that war powers should reside with Congress, not the president alone. Paul's argument exposes why Trump's Board of Peace scheme is directly connected to his illegal military actions. The board is Trump's way of creating the appearance of international support and process for his unilateral decisions. Countries that join the board and pay Trump $1 billion are implicitly endorsing Trump's approach to foreign policy and giving him cover to claim international backing for actions he's taking without congressional approval. That's why the membership is so expensive. Trump is literally selling legitimacy and selling the appearance that his unilateral actions have multinational support when they don't. Scott Bessent's appearance revealed the administration's complete contempt for constitutional limits on presidential power. When asked whether Greenland annexation threats are serious or just negotiating tactics, Bessent didn't acknowledge any role for Congress in such a decision, didn't mention international law or diplomatic processes or treaty requirements, just said Trump believes we can't outsource our security, so it's better to make Greenland part of the United States now, through peace through strength to prevent future conflict. That's the Treasury Secretary openly advocating for potentially military annexation of another country based solely on the president's belief about what serves American security needs. The administration clearly believes Trump has the authority to annex foreign territory simply because he decides it's good for American security. No congressional approval needed, no treaty process needed, no international law considerations, just Trump deciding what he wants and the military executing his orders. That's what peace through strength actually means in their framework. Trump threatens countries with military action. Countries either comply with what Trump demands or they face that military action. And somehow this approach is supposed to prevent conflict rather than cause it. Trump is using American military power and government authority to enrich himself personally through this billion-dollar Board of Peace scheme, while simultaneously destroying America's relationships with our closest allies and violating the Constitution's clear limits on presidential war powers. This story continues. Stay tuned.